Trump fabricates suspicion out of nowhere when he doesn't get exactly what he wants. He invents conspiracy theories based on his own imagination and then tells you that they are facts. Do you remember when Hillary got 4 million illegal votes? No evidence. He invented a conspiracy. This is the Preserving and Protecting the Integrity of American Elections. Donald Trump signed this on March 25th. That was yesterday. It's awful. It is going to ruin the elections that are already kind of crappy. So let's read what this has to say. Despite pioneering self-government, the United States now fails to enforce basic and necessary election protections employed by modern developed nations, as well as those still developing. India and Brazil, for example, are tying voter identification to a biometric database, while the United States largely relies on self-attestation for citizenship. No, it doesn't. Self-attestation for citizenship. What is this about? This is about voter ID. Voter ID is racist. Now, lots of people get very unhappy when they hear that sentence. All the conservatives start exploding and screaming and typing in all caps into the comments about how is it racist to ask people for ID. I'll tell you how. I'll explain it to you. We'll read this, then I'll put on a little act, a little play, and you'll see the racism. I'll pretend to be a racist for a minute, and you'll see it.
Hello human, it is me Canuch. I need you to press the subscribe button. I have to feed my many AI babies.
Self-attestation for citizenship is not how we determine who's allowed to vote. You don't register to vote, and then they say, do you feel like a citizen? And then you say yes, and they're like, good enough for me. Derp. I guess that must be true. No. Stupid. They check your name and your address, and they determine whether or not you're allowed to vote when you register. Donald Trump does not understand what registering to vote means because it's done in the back. It's done away from prying eyes. When you register to vote, they read your information and determine if you're allowed to vote. If you are, they put you on the voter roll and send you something in the mail telling you how and when. If you're not, they don't put you on the list. And then they send you something in the mail saying you're not allowed to vote. Donald Trump doesn't know this exists. It's happened for millions and millions of people. And Donald Trump doesn't know it because he's either an idiot, which is true, or willingly, intentionally lying. He's misunderstanding on purpose to create a delusion of millions of illegal people voting and spreading that fear to scare you. I'm totally clipping you and pretending you to be racist and repost it. Yes, you should. That's fine. I completely accept that, KVP. I really do. I want you to do exactly that. I accept the all clip trimming of me because that'll just get my name out there. Even bad press is press. Voters should have to show a license before entering the voting booth. I don't have a problem with that. Neither do I. And we'll get into that. Registration is where they determine whether or not you're allowed to vote. If you're at the voting booth and you show a license, they check that against their list, their roll, their voter roll. And if you're on that list, that means you are registered. Your citizenship has been determined, and they put you on the roll. If you showed up there with a license and you haven't registered, some places will let you do a same-day registration, but that doesn't mean that you get to skip the whole citizenship thing. They put your vote in a separate pile to be determined if you're allowed, and if you are not allowed, your vote does not get counted. We have these problems solved. Donald Trump misunderstands voter ID. He creates a delusion about millions of illegals voting, and he spreads fear about that happening. Those are his 3 steps for every single fucking issue. Misunderstand, delusion, fear. every issue. He misunderstands what's happening at the border. He creates a delusion about caravans. He spreads fear. He misunderstands what political asylum is. He creates a delusion of insane asylums dropping their patients off at the border, and he spreads fear about it. He misunderstands what did he misunderstand lately? The Social Security. He misunderstands Social Security. He creates a delusion about millions of dead people getting money, and he spreads fear. Misunderstand, delusion, fear. Same 3 steps every single time, every single issue, always. Misunderstand, delusion, fear. He misunderstands trans people, so he creates a delusion about them being groomers and pooping in kitty boxes in high school, and then he spreads fear about it. I heard that you can use a botnet to register millions of fake voters and vote that way. Yeah, exactly. He misunderstands what a botnet is, and so he creates a delusion about Hillary stealing an election, even though he won, and then spreads fear. So let's keep reading this, however. In tabulating votes, Germany and Canada require use of paper ballots counted in public by local officials, which substantially reduces the number of disputes as compared to the American patchwork of voting methods that can lead to basic chain of custody problems. The reason we have an American patchwork is because we have many, many, many states. States get to determine how they want to do their votes. If they don't want to use paper ballots, they don't have to. Now, the conservatives love states' rights when it benefits them. Conservatives don't like states' rights when it comes to voting. They don't. They want everybody to vote their way, and fuck your face if you don't like that. If you want your state to have mail-in voting, conservatives want you to go fuck off. They do. They do not accept the idea that you would do it differently than them, because they don't actually respect states' rights. They just want things the way they want them. Further, while countries like Denmark and Sweden sensibly limit mail-in voting to those unable to vote in person and do not count late arriving votes, regardless of the date of the postmark, many American elections now feature mass voting by mail. That's a good thing, you sick fuck. With many officials accepting ballots without postmarks or those received well after Election Day. Now, some people do accept the ballots depending on when they got postmarked or if they look like they were sent within the last couple of days. This is fine. This is not a problem unless you are a fascist trying to stop people voting. Free, fair, and honest elections unmarred by fraud, errors, or suspicion are fundamental to maintaining our constitutional republic. Suspicion. Here's where I start to see some big-time problems. Trump fabricates suspicion out of nowhere when he doesn't get exactly what he wants. He invents conspiracy theories based on his own imagination and then tells you that they are facts. Do you remember when Hillary got 4 million illegal votes? No evidence. He invented a conspiracy. He invented suspicion. He created that suspicion out of his own head, pulled it out of his own ass, and then told you it was a fact. That's what a liar does. That's why I don't like him. He's a gigantic super liar. That's one of the things that bothers me so much is he just gets to lie constantly and nobody cares. Like, I mean, everybody cares. We all care. You all care. I care. But nobody just like, hey, remember that time you said 4 million people voted for Hillary? Yeah. 4 million illegals voted for Hillary and it wasn't true. Remember that? I remember that. Why don't we get to talk about that? Well, that's old news, Waldo. He said 78 lies since today. Just today he said 78 more lies. Why would we go back to that one? I suppose. Under the Constitution, state governments must safeguard American elections in compliance with federal laws and protect Americans' voting rights and guard against dilution by illegal voting. Dilution by illegal voting. That's not happening. It hasn't happened. It's never happened. It's never happened. Never. Why are we creating Gestapo laws to prevent things that don't happen unless you're trying to rig the next election, which is exactly what this is about. This is not about safeguarding the election. This is about stealing the next ones. The next ones will be stolen because of this shit right here. Keep on reading. Let's see. discrimination, fraud, and other forms of malfeasance and error. Yet the United States has not adequately enforced federal election requirements that, for example, prohibit states from counting ballots received after Election Day or prohibit non-citizens from registering to vote. Non-citizens have not registered to vote. They can try, but then they get turned down. He does not understand what that word registration means. He misunderstands it. He creates a delusion about non-citizens registering to vote, and he spreads fear. Federal law establishes a uniform election day across the national and federal elections. It is a policy of my administration to enforce those statutes and require that votes be cast and received by the election date established by law. No more mail-in voting, no more early voting, 1 day only. You know who says that? You know who says 1 day and 1 day only? People who want fewer votes and voters. That's who says that. You cannot say you want a healthy democracy if this is the only time, this is the only 24-hour period you're allowed to vote. Madness. Insanity. They do not want you to vote. They do not want me to vote. They do not want people who do not agree with them to vote. And they will do everything they can to prevent it. Doesn't matter if it's legal or not. They will try their asses off to prevent people voting because they hate you and they do not want your voice to be counted. As the United States Court of Appeals, the Fifth Circuit recently held the Republican National Committee, Wetzel states day of ballots cast both voters. Numerous states fail to comply with those laws by counting ballots received after Election Day. This is like allowing persons who drive 3 days after Election Day, perhaps after a winner has been declared, to vote in person in a former voting precinct, which would be absurd. That's not absurd. You should have deadlines. I'm all right with a deadline. Election Day should be the final day. If your mail-in ballot came in the day after that, count it. Fine. If it's post-dated the day before the election or the day of the election, it counts. Arriving 3 days afterward, then after the winner has been declared and voting is not happening. It's never happened. Several federal laws, including this and that, yet states failed to adequately vet the voters' citizenship, and in recent years the Department of Justice has failed to prioritize and devote sufficient resources for enforcement of these provisions. Even worse, the prior administration actively prevented states from removing aliens from their voter list. Absolute horseshit. None of this is true. They just get to fucking lie openly in these executive orders. There are not aliens on the voter lists. And if they are, they're put there as a do not let this person register to vote because they're not citizens. If you send them your information and you're not allowed, they turn you down. It's how this has always worked. This is not a problem needing to be solved. It's not a thing that happens. Above all, elections must be honest and worthy of the public trust. That requires voting methods that produce voter-verifiable paper record, allowing voters to efficiently check their votes to protect against fraud or mistake. Election integrity standards must be modified accordingly. So this is another one of those conspiracy theories that conservatives have been telling people for years about how the vote got switched after they pressed it. They pressed Donald Trump, but the vote switched to Joe Biden, and it said, "Thank you for your vote," and then they kicked them out of the room. And then it slapped him on the ass and told him, "You have to leave now. You know you cannot argue with this. No, you cannot talk to somebody about it. If you get a receipt, well, then that makes it clear and obvious. And then you can gather all your receipts together." No, you know what this leads to? This leads to 100 goofy grandmas at a retirement home, all holding their receipts for Donald Trump and saying, "There's no possible way he lost. Look, we all have these receipts," when he loses by 1 million, but they've got 100, so it clearly can't be true. But it's a paper receipt isn't the worst kind of thing that I can imagine. It's fine, not a big deal, but it will lead to stupid people getting on Facebook and Twitter and Fox News saying that the election was rigged against Donald Trump and against the Republicans. Within 30 days of the date of this order, the Election Assistance Commission shall take appropriate action to require, in its national mail voter registration form issued under 52, documentary proof of United States citizenship Consistent with that, state or local officials to record on the form the type of document that the applicant presented as documentary proof of United States citizenship, including the date of the document issuance, the date of the document expiration, the office used to document, the unique identification number, all the fucking numbers, your height, your weight, all of the things, what you thought about, what your GPA was in middle school. Documents as required by the criteria while taking appropriate measures to ensure information security. The purpose of the subsection, blah, blah, blah. And Office of Military Identification Cards. Anything else important in here? I think there was something about the Attorney General. Yeah. The Attorney General shall prioritize enforcement of this and similar laws that restrict non-citizens from registering to vote or voting through the use of databases or information maintained by the Department of Homeland Security, state-issued identification records, driver's license databases. The Attorney General shall, consistent with applicable laws. And then the worst possible fucking thing I saw on here. Where are you? I read it earlier. We're going to do a Control F so I can find it. There you are. Department of Homeland Security in coordination with the Doge Administrator, whoever the hell that is. It might be Elon. It might be some lady you've never heard of. Nobody can make up their fucking minds. Shall review each state's publicly available voter registration list and available records concerning voter list maintenance activities as required by this, alongside federal immigration databases and state record requested. If you are registered to vote, Doge has your information. Sucks to suck. Sorry to be you. Sorry to be me. Doge has your shit. And I'm sure they'll be fine, and they won't do anything fucking disgusting with it. They won't do anything stupid with it.
Pressing the thumbs up button will release chemicals in your human brain that will make you feel.
Let's imagine. When you go to the airport, I've been to the airport, you've been there, they look at your driver's license. They don't verify your address. They don't verify your age or your height. It would take too long. The verification happens when you applied for the driver's license. That's why the DMV takes so long and then often sends you a new license in the mail a week or two later, because they were checking, they were verifying, they were double checking the information to make sure that it is accurate. This is the same for voting registration. The registration happens months or even years ahead of the election. The databases are checked for accuracy, and if you are not a citizen, you are not registered to vote. This problem has been solved. We do not need Donald Trump solving the problem. Republicans, one and all, are lying to everyone all the time about this. I don't know why we let them get away with it. Non-citizens are not and have never voted in federal elections. It's never happened. Trump claimed that 4 million illegal people voted for Hillary Clinton back in 2016. He put together an entire task force to find them. The task force found none and then quietly shut down because they all knew he was also lying. They knew he was lying. They lied about it all the time. Republicans lie about this constantly. This executive order will not make elections more secure. It will make them more racist. Trump wants uneducated, untrained Republicans to sit at the front door of all polling places and only let the Americans in to vote, aka white people. They will be allowed to pass right on through and cast a vote. But if you don't have a perfectly white Anglo-Saxon complexion like mine, if you're not wearing the appropriate clothing, if you don't have the appropriate hair, if you have a foreign-sounding name, you will be challenged by this uneducated, untrained Republican. You will be slowed, hampered, oppressed, and forced to clear more hurdles. Let's put on a little play acting. So this is the part get ready for this, KVP. This is when I pretend to be racist. Let's put on a little play acting. I will pretend to be the uneducated, untrained Republican that Trump wants at the front door. Okay, so hello. Welcome to the polls today. Hi. What's your name? Jan Smith? Get right this way. Hang on, let me get my registration list. Yeah, Jan Smith. I got your name right here, Jan. Come on in. Here's your I voted sticker. And you, sir, what is your name? Your name is Bill Stockton. Okay, yeah, you're on my list. Right this way, Mr. Stockton. Here's your sticker. And you, sir, what is your name? Javier Gutierrez. Well, yes, you're here on my registration list, but Do you have any ID, Mr. Gutierrez? You got a driver's license. Okay, well, immigrants can get driver's license too these days. So, do you happen to have any other, like a green card or any sort of citizenship paperwork? Oh, what's that? You were born in Oklahoma, so you don't need a green card. Interesting. Okay. Do you happen to have your Oklahoma birth certificate with you? No? Okay, well, I can't ascertain your citizenship status, so please return here with your birth certificate and wait in that 4-hour line again. What? Don't raise your voice at me, Mr. Gutierrez. I am a steward of democracy. If you continue to act like this, I will have the police escort you away from these premises. My goodness, that was frightening. Okay, who's next on the list? Brittany Buchanan. Right this way. Here's your sticker. End scene. There you go, KBP. That is what Trump wants, and that is what all Republicans want. That is why he signed this executive order. He wants that little scenario to play out 1 million times across the country at every single polling place. He wants anyone who does not look like me to be hassled. The more hassle the voting is, the fewer people will do it. He wants the feelings of the poll worker to determine who is and isn't allowed to vote. Not the facts, not the registration database. No. Republicans can't allow the law to make those determinations. The law is blind. Haven't you seen the lady, the statue? She has a blindfold on. How is she going to know who isn't an American? She can't even see. Republicans want the poll workers to vibe check each person, use their gut to come to a decision. And even if they're proven wrong, they'll feel like they're right because they used their common sense. And as I've said 1 million times, common sense is just a feeling. All politics are based on feelings. This executive order, in conjunction with the Republican-led House and Senate, the Republican ownership of the U.S. Postal Service, because we're about to get a new Postmaster General who's going to shut that mailing votes down. That shit is shut down real soon. The entire media has a right-wing slant. This will lead to massive chaos in the next election. We live in interesting times. I'm sorry to let you know that, but we do. This is the next step in the fascist authoritarian takeover of America. This is a solution to a problem that does not exist, intended to rig the next election. If the Dem wins in the next midterm, they will invent fear, uncertainty, and doubt, then point back at this executive order and say that the votes should not count. If a Republican wins, and there's some reporter talks about the people who were turned away, or the legitimate voters got kicked off the rolls, or the votes weren't counted, that reporter might be arrested. And why am I saying it this time? Providing false election information is a crime. Sending out info to people with the wrong date of an election in a hope that they don't show up on time is actually a crime. That's happened in the past. People send out mailers and information with the wrong dates to dick people up, hoping they wouldn't show up. That is an actual crime. I'm predicting now that this is the big one. This is the executive order that will get reporters charged and arrested because they will be reporting on people who were unable to vote. And the Attorney General, Nazi Barbie, will call that false election information and start charging reporters with crimes. And I'm actually being kind of optimistic here. A reporter on CNN saying a true thing and then getting charges brought against them might not happen because they simply won't say the true things. They might wimp out and comply ahead of time with the Trump admin to very softly ask questions without coming to any conclusions or making any statements so that they don't get charged or arrested, making any viewer unsure if anything actually went wrong. I'm kind of tired of the news just asking questions. I'm gonna need them to start providing answers. But they don't do that, do they?
I am the algorithm. Click on this video to make me happy. You wouldn't like me when I am angry.